Hello, this is Fred Liers of Health Products Distributors and another Creating Health Naturally video. And today, as you can see, I'm in the kitchen once again. I'm not going to be making any food or any type of smoothies or any type of drinks like I often do. Today I'm talking about a slightly different topic, but it's timely and I believe it's relevant. The topic today is electromagnetic fields and nutritional supplements. Electromagnetic fields, sometimes called EMFs for short. In our daily lives, EMFs are generally encountered, the type I'm talking about, from exposures to cellular phones, Wi-Fi networks, Bluetooth radiation, as well as smart meters, and similar exposures. Now, this is a big topic, and I'm going to be really pretty brief today because I am not an expert in electromagnetic fields, nor in their mitigation. What I am is somewhat electrically sensitive, or electrically hypersensitive. I don't know what the word is. I had a couple of exposures in recent years to solar systems where there were very powerful inverters near where I was working, like on the other side of a wall, and smart meters. And when these systems were turned on, I experienced fatigue, mental confusion to a degree, inability to concentrate. I didn't necessarily know what it was, and it didn't necessarily debilitate me in any way. It just was something that I noticed, but I didn't really necessarily know why or what was causing it. And over time, I was able to figure out that the solar inverters and smart meters were bothering me, and be able to take some action. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. And so that's kind of my background, because before the exposure to solar, I used a cell phone like anybody else. I still have a cell phone. And I used Wi-Fi networks, and I sometimes still do. But after the solar exposures, I became more sensitive to cellular phone calls. And those frequencies associated with cell phones, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and similar type of electromagnetic fields, to the point where I now recognize when I'm in one and I can take action to get out of it or mitigate it. And I'm actually going to show you a few things, a little bit of show and tell today, that I have since done to reduce my exposures and feel better. So I've actually figured out a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, and I'll share some basic things with you. So the first thing I'd like to do is show you my meters. I got a couple of meters. I actually have more meters than what I'm going to show you, but I just wanted to, I'm not here to go too deeply into the metering aspect of this, because like I said, I'm an amateur. But these meters have actually really helped me, because I can actually turn them on and I can measure what I'm being exposed to, and then I can say, hey, this is real, as opposed to, well, I'm feeling weird, but like I don't know why, so I'll just forget about it and suffer in silence, so to speak. So, just quickly, this is my BioSafe meter. This is a version of a meter that is made by Alpha Lab. These cost about $100. These are good general meters. You can measure cell phones with them. You can measure Wi-Fi networks. They measure electric and magnetic fields. And like I said, they're not expensive. They're good to have around. This is a very good general meter. It measures, what I like to do is, it measures in the 0 to 100 magnetic range. But I will often turn it to the 0 to 3, because if it shows me in the 0 to 100 magnetic range that there's anything above, if there's definite significant reading, then I will oftentimes move it to the 0 to 3, because anything 0 to 3 anything above 3 is supposed to be not so good for you. So what I will frequently actually do is measure 0 to 3 first. If it's off the scale of the 3, then I'll turn it over to the 0 to 100 range, and then I can actually see how high it is. I will usually start feeling something around the 3 or less, and you'd be surprised at how high the readings can go on it. You start getting near a solar inverter or a smart meter, and a lot of other things like Wi-Fi and cellular phones. Probably my favorite general meter, this is called an acoustimeter. I really, really like this meter, and I'll turn it on and give you a little demonstration in a minute, because it's a little more expensive. I think these run probably $350 and higher. So it was a kind of an expense for me, to at least initially, but now I'm like so glad I have it. And so I would recommend, if you can afford one of these, you might consider getting one, because as you wander around your house checking out your Wi-Fi networks and your cell phones and your Bluetooth devices, your game controllers, maybe even some toys that run on their own networks, you will really, this was enabled me to clear my house of a lot of devices I could turn off, I could not use as much, or I could actually, for example, I don't use Wi-Fi anymore, pretty much. I pretty much wired my house, and I was going to come to that. What I was able to do is just take my internet and convert it to Ethernet. And so my computer and laptop are Ethernet, and I found adapters for my iPad and for my iPhone. So pretty much I'm able to use wired connections and minimize my use of the phone by putting it on airplane mode, sometimes turning it off entirely. And if I'm expecting a call that I can call them back on a landline, I can I don't have to necessarily be on a Wi-Fi network or on using cellular data. Pretty much I keep those off all the time. And I feel much better, so that's the point of this. And eventually I'm going to talk a little bit about the supplements that I recommend for EMF exposures. So, a third type of meter I want to quickly show you. This is an EMI. It's a broadband EMI meter. It measures electromagnetic interference. And what that really means in my context is when I had the solar energy when I had the solar panels installed on my house, it says green wave on it. This is actually, there's another one of these that's a little less expensive. This is about $130. It's called a Stetzer Meter. Those were the originals, the Stetzer meters. This one is probably very similar. I like the little readout here, which I will show you in a few minutes. So when you have an inverter or transformers of any magnitude, the electricity in your home, which runs at 60 hertz, gets what they call transients and harmonics on it, which I had no idea what these were. I'd never heard of them. But when the solar panels were installed, then I could feel the electricity, and I did not feel good, and so I had to dig around, do a little research, and discover that they sell meters that you can actually measure the dirty electricity. That's another word for it. It's not the technically correct word. It's electromagnetic interference, but it's dirty electricity. And what that really means is that when the solar panel system, which converts light from the sun into DC power, that DC power must then be converted to AC power in your home. And it's done through an inverter. Well, in the process of converting that DC power to AC power and coming onto your existing AC power lines in your home, it distorts it, and it adds other frequencies, and these other frequencies are associated with adverse health effects when they're high enough. And so this company, and in the book Dirty Electricity, they recommend, say, no more than, say, maybe 50 millivolts. But, probably a few hundred wouldn't hurt you, depending on who you are. I may be a little more sensitive. But what I'm talking about here now is that when I shut my power off to my solar inverter, my electromagnetic interference level readings go down to, say, 200. But when the solar power is on during the day, these readings can soar to 2,000, which I certainly feel. And but a lot of people probably live with this and don't even know about it, and I'll give you a little demonstration of that in a minute. But I want to move on to show you how these meters are used, just briefly. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is give myself a phone call. This is a cell phone that I'm going to call myself on. And I'm going to turn this meter on. Now, this meter, what I like about it is it has lights. It has green lights, yellow lights, and red lights. And in the green, you're generally fine. I can sometimes feel things even when the lights are going green. And in the yellow range, I will usually feel it. In the red range, you wanna not be around it if possible for any length of time. And so this shows peaks and averages, and the peaks are measured in volts per meter. You can see that on this side. Now, what I like about the measurement of peaks is that digital signals tend to go, analog signals tend to be more even. You'll have peaks and valleys, whereas digital signals from, say, cell phones and devices that use Wi-Fi networks, you'll notice, for example, I have an Apple TV, and I have a remote on that, and I measure the remote, and it'll go from 0 in the green, bam, all the way up to 6 instantaneously when you hit a button on that thing. And so that's what I'm talking about, and you'll see that when I make this phone call. The other thing, and then they have averages over here, and so there are standards in different parts of the world, including the United States, and about halfway up on the peaks, or 1 volt per meter, is probably a good limit if you can live that way. It's very difficult, especially if you're at a coffee shop and it's way over 6. For bedrooms and sleeping quarters, it might be 1/10 of that. So somewhere between the lower third here and the middle is really where you want to be ideally most of the time. The averages, similarly, maybe you want to be at 1,000 microwatts per meter squared, which is somewhere down here, or between 500 and 1,000. Sleeping quarters, maybe less. Now, just to let you know that in the United States, for example, the law is pretty lenient in terms of what they regulate, in terms of what they think is acceptable exposure. So what affects me is many times lower than the limits that would be, say, by law. So, and this is nothing new. So I just need to take care of me, right? So that's why I have these meters. So just be prepared to live in a world where you can reduce your own personal exposures as best you can. So, this also has a handy-dandy little audio function. I'm going to turn it up now. And so here we have a baseline. So there's no lights really turning on or off yet. Sometimes if I move it around, we'll get a couple of green lights. You can hear it buzzing a little bit. And then you look at the readings here, and it gives you a nice little digital readout. All right, so I am now going to call myself, and we'll see what happens to this meter. Okay. Alright, so now I'm now calling myself. Okay, so here we go. Oh! Alright, so you can see, now it's pretty close, but even over here, now you can see our peaks are really kind of going off the top of the chart, and our averages are very high as well. So this is what happens when you call yourself, and this is what happens when you are called, or you call somebody else using a cell phone. Alright, I think that's a pretty good demonstration. I'm going to turn it off before I get too exposed here. Now, I know that you may not have a really good understanding of like what... Oh, see there, there's a little... So you can see it turned on. There are some fields around here. So that was in the green. And so essentially this thing really just went off the charts, and this is why when I used to receive phone calls, I didn't really notice anything. Since the solar exposure to the solar inverter, I really feel when a call comes in, and I really feel it when I'm on the phone for any length of time. So some of the things that I do, for example, now if I have to use the cell phone, is I use the speakerphone. So I'll keep it at a distance from me. A couple of other things that I like to do. So the main things that you can do to reduce your cell phone exposure are distance. You can distance yourself from the phone. You can use shielding, which I'll show you in a second. And you can also use things like airplane mode, or just turning the phone off. So I want to show you something. This is a kind of a cool little handset thing I have. This plugs into my iPhone, and then I can leave the phone at somewhat of a distance, and just use this retro style handset. And I have several different types of devices like this that give me some distance. One of which I'd like to show you is an air tube headset. This is kind of cool. So what you see here is it's a headset. It plugs into the phone and it's wired, but at some point the wires break off into these little air tubes. And then you just stick these over your ear, and you're not conducting any of that radiation up these wires from your cell phone, which is kind of cool. And you get a nice long cord, so you can keep the phone sort of off to the side somewhere. Another thing that I have that works to a degree is an anti-radiation case. This one's for my iPhone. You just pop your iPhone right in here, and then you flip the lid over. And this lid has like a military grade EMF blocking material in it. So if I don't hold it to my ear generally, but it still blocks about half the radiation, which really isn't enough. But if a reading goes from 6 down to 3, that's not insignificant, especially if, as I do, I'm already keeping it on speakerphone a distance away from me. So this is made by Safe Sleeve. There are other brands out there. And as far as the earbuds, you can get different brands of the what they call the air tube headsets. You can just go look online. Another thing that I sometimes use is a Faraday bag. I got this one for about $18 online, and if you put your phone in it, and no matter if you're making calls or if you're receiving calls, which you wouldn't want to do because you will not receive the call. Basically this bag will block everything. So let's say you've turned I've tested it. I've put Wi-Fi on, Bluetooth on, cellular data on, made calls. If the phone is in here, nothing's getting out and nothing's getting in. So it's handy dandy when you're traveling, say, or you're in the car and you just don't want to be bothered, and it's going to prevent all signals. I'm also going to show you one more thing with a meter before we move on to the supplements, and that is I'm going to actually show you how dirty my electricity is, or how much electromagnetic interference there is in my home. So it used to be about 2,000 when we first had the solar panels installed, and I could feel that, and did not make me feel good. So one of the things I've done is installed a line conditioner. That's a little expensive, and I had to get it through a company, and then I had to have an electrician install it, and it cut the EMI down significantly. But there are days like today when the sun's way overhead and the solar panels are cranking, and I'll still get a reading over 1,000. But I feel better. But what I want to show you now is how you actually measure that. So if you have solar panels, you might want to get one of these. Even if you don't, though, battery backups, transformers of various types, computers, lots of office equipment will produce electromagnetic interference. So even if you don't have solar panels, you still may have readings in the hundreds that you might want to reduce. through the use of what I'm about to show you, which is an Emi filter. So these just so happen, this is a green wave meter, this is a green wave filter. This is sort of a very similar to a Stetzer filter in terms of what it's designed to do. So they have Stetzer meters and Stetzer filters. Those are the originals. I like the green waves because this is what I ended up getting. But they're very, very similar in terms of what they were intended to do. So what I have found is I had some of these before I installed the line conditioner on my solar system, or on my electrical box, but these did not work very well near that area of the home. They worked well in other areas of the home. So that's why I installed the line conditioner. But I'm going to show you, line conditioner or not, I'm going to plug this in and you're going to see. So just remember, you really want the readings on this to be, say, no more than 50, especially for sleeping. But 100, 200, probably higher than I would like it. That's probably not that big a deal. I notice it personally. I'd like to get it in my sleeping area down to 25 or less, and then I feel like I sleep better. But I'm just going to show you. So it's the afternoon, and the sun is still up. So I'm going to plug this in. Okay, it has an audible sound as well. I don't know if you can read this, but what I'm currently reading is 1490. About 1490. I've seen it in this particular outlet run 1500 or higher, and I've seen it go down to 1100, 1200. But right now, at this moment, it is currently running 1490, which is really higher than I want it to be. But I purposely have not filtered this outlet that I've plugged this meter into. If you can see that number, I don't know if it's rendering, but it's bouncing around, but it's about 1490. That's the top number, 1490. So now, bear with me. I'm going to take this filter, this green wave filter, and I'm going to plug it into the outlet, and you will see what happens. So bear with me. Okay, so all I did was plug that green wave filter into the outlet, and you can hear the noise. The noise went way down, and now we're looking at numbers. Okay, so we're at 8990, around 8990. So we just went from like a huge number down to 90. So with the plugging in of a single electromagnetic interference filter. And I can feel the difference. So I'm just going to leave it plugged in because I feel the difference. But anyway, the point is I'm just demonstrating to you some of the common forms of EMF that we're exposed to. And so, I feel like I'm a pretty normal person, living a pretty normal life. I've had an iPhone since 2000, maybe 8, and a cell phone since maybe 2003. I didn't really notice much of anything until after these exposures to the solar inverters. But I feel as if my gut tells me that even though I may not have felt it and that I'm aware of these things now that I'm aware of them, I'm paying much more attention to some of the maybe it's some of the subtler things, like how I feel if I happen to be using cellular data, how I feel if I'm standing next to someone who has a cell phone on them, and it's at the point where I can often tell whether they have Wi-Fi on, whether they have Bluetooth on, whether they're using cellular data, and then if they're my friends, and they're not, I will move away from them first. But if they're not using their phone, I will often ask them, hey, put it on airplane mode, at least for the moment, and help me out here. So, now I want to tell you a little bit about some of the supplements that I have used to combat some of these exposures that are fairly routine. I know, like I said, I've reduced them, but probably most people, whether they realize it or not, are exposed on a routine basis to some of these EMFs, whether through cell phone use or solar panels on their near them, and solar inverters or smart meters, which are kind of everywhere now. So The supplements that I'm going to talk about are supplements I've actually already been talking about. Except I want to shift it a little bit because the first 4 supplements that I'm showing that are sitting right here are actually foundationals. And I've talked a lot about the health products distributor system, our little pyramid system of foundational supplements and enhancement formulas and specific condition formulas. But the 2 I really would like to talk about first here are Pro-C and Ultimate Protector. Now, both of these formulas fall under the category of vitamin C/antioxidant formula. And these are both foundationals, and there's really 4 different types of foundational supplements, and I've spoken about those at length. Essentially, it's a multivitamin, therapeutic quality. It can't be just any multivitamin. A vitamin C antioxidant formula, an essential fatty acid formula, EFAs, and a Rejuvenate superfood. I don't have the Rejuvenate superfood here today, but I have the other 4. But I'm starting off talking about the vitamin C antioxidant formulas because in my personal experience, these are really critical for me to take in order to help mitigate some of the effects of electromagnetic fields. And actually, before I go on, I want to just take a slight segue. How do these electromagnetic fields, now that I've given you a slight demonstration of a few types of meters and a few types of field measurements, how do electromagnetic fields actually affect us? Like I say I feel it, but what does that really mean? Well, if you dig into the science, one of the main effects of electromagnetic fields, and there are many different types of effects, it's a free radical generating type of an effect. So, for example, certain types of electromagnetic fields that we're exposed to actually will generate free radicals in the body. And so I know that peroxynitrite is one of the main free radicals generated by electromagnetic fields that are commonly experienced. And one of the ways that works is it opens up the voltage-gated channels of the cell. So it's kind of messing with the calcium pathway. Suffice it to say, the cell is exposed to higher than normal levels of peroxynitrite and other free radicals, hence the need to take antioxidants, which will quench those free radicals. Another means by which the electromagnetic fields can harm human health, or at least affect it, is by reducing melatonin secretion. And so that's another reason to just reduce the amount of EMF, especially later in the day, because when do we repair? We repair at night when we sleep, and the melatonin is secreted. And we do sell melatonin, by the way, but that's not what I'm talking about today. And another way they actually, EMFs affect us, is they can actually break DNA. There can be single-strand breaks and double-strand breaks. Obviously, a single-strand break is better than a double-strand break, but your body has repair mechanisms to an extent. And nutritional supplements that provide some free radical defense will help support those mechanisms in the immune system and those built-in mechanisms in the cell for repairing itself. So that's a little segue to just touch base a little bit on the means by which the EMFs can be harmful. So knowing that free radicals are generated by electromagnetic fields, then it stands to reason that one would increase one's antioxidant intake. So Pro-C is really a wonderful product. It's 500 milligrams of vitamin C. It's got 30 milligrams of grape extract, which is in itself an extremely potent antioxidant. And these two work together. When they're synergistic, the vitamin C works with the grape extract. And so I take these on a regular basis. I probably take 8 of these a day in divided doses. And it really powers me up. And I really feel that this has helped me, I don't know if compensate is the right word, but it's really helps my body deal with being exposed to EMFs. And there's other things in here like glutathione and green tea extract, and N-acetyl-L-cysteine and R-lipoic acid. So I think you get the idea. And Ultimate Protector is actually a very unique product. This was formulated by my father, Dr. Hank Liers, to be a NRF2 activating formula, which means that it has substances which can go into the nucleus of your cells and then tell your cell to make its own antioxidants. So there are exogenous antioxidants, like those provided in Pro-C and vitamin C itself, and then there are endogenous antioxidants, which are made by you. And this is a product that is formulated to help your cell make its own antioxidants. And I'll add on that note that Pro-C, even though it was not designed as a NRF2 activator, is probably pretty close to this product as a NRF2 activator formula. So we didn't realize that at the time, but in subsequent research and investigation, we've come to realize that, wow, Pro-C really is a NRF2 activator formula. We don't necessarily promote it as such all the time, but this definitely is. It has 29 different plant-based ingredients that are NRF2 activators. And so I take both. I may take 8 Pro-C a day, and I probably take 6 of these, again in divided doses. And I really, really think this has helped me. And so it would probably help you as well, because we all work with a network of antioxidants, and we all need antioxidant defense. And so being exposed to different types of free radicals in daily life, we all have needs for supplemental antioxidants to help boost our antioxidant systems. So, okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through a few more supplements that I believe may be the most important for mitigating EMFs. Now, it may seem simple to say, but I do believe that a multivitamin should always be part of a person's regimen. This is multi-2 caps. The reason that I even bother with a multivitamin, talking about it, is because a multivitamin, now I'm not talking about a one a day, 100% of the RDA or daily value kind of a weak vitamin. I'm talking about a therapeutic level, a level that provides, in some cases hundreds or even thousands of times the quote-unquote daily value. Because the daily values, as you may know, are based on levels when they tested animals in the past on like deficiency states. So we don't want the minimum amount of a nutrient that is on that borderline that's nutrient deficient, and now that you're no longer nutrient deficient, now you're nutrient sufficient. It doesn't really work that way. You want to have optimal levels because we're all different, and your needs may be greater than someone else's. And who can say, well, everybody just needs 100% of this arbitrary value, when in fact, if you get a therapeutic level, you're far more likely to be meeting your needs. So, and I also say this because in our experience with genetic testing with the Body Sync, we work with the Body Sync company and they produce, there's a genetic test, and they develop action plans for their clients, and we really believe in their product. We've discovered that in many cases of with genetics that indicate you have a gene that indicates you're heterozygous, and you're not processing certain vitamins and minerals well, that even just taking a multivitamin at the therapeutic level can mitigate many of these so-called genetic deficiencies that you may think, well, it's my genes, that's who I am, I'm deficient in this. But the truth of the matter is, by providing even you know, somewhat raised levels that are then able to help your body work through those deficiencies, you can experience far greater health with the addition of a good multivitamin that addresses deficiencies that are genetically related. So that's why I really felt that's really, really important to mention a multivitamin. And then the fourth of the third of the foundational supplements is an essential fatty acid formula. And this is essential fats plus E. In the Hank and Brian label, it's still a Health Products Distributors product formulated by Dr. Hank Liers, my father. This is really important because we really need essential fats. I mean, you've heard it before, but I don't think people really fully understand it because I know a lot of people who take a multivitamin, but I don't really know all that many people who take essential fats. But EPA and DHA and GLA, and this also has tocotrienols, which is a special form of vitamin E that will protect the EPA, DHA, and GLA. You really, really need these essential fatty acids because cell membranes are lipids, and you really need to protect your cell membranes. And many other functions in the body dealing with inflammation. Like I said, I'm not going to go into depth on this particular product today. That's for another video. But suffice it to say that from any angle you look at it, you really need to have your essential fatty acids. And you can get them from diet. However, I like to take supplemental essential fats because I know that in any given day while I eat very well, I just want to have that insurance policy, if you will, to make sure that I'm getting the essential fats that I really need. And I have found through time that if I just make sure I take them daily, I mean, I'm only taking, say, 4 capsules a day, that it has helped me. And I've seen it in other people as well. So I really strongly recommend you take an essential fatty acid product. So those are this is sort of like the basics that I would start with first, whether or not you're EMF sensitive. And I will also add that they have done live blood cell analysis. And there could be a person who's sensitive to, say, a smart meter, and they expose them to it, and the person's like, oh yeah, I feel it, and they take their blood. And the next person, they take their blood, but the person says they don't feel a thing. But when they look at the blood under the microscope, they still see that the blood goes from sort of free-flowing and normally shaped to sort of clumped and maybe crescent-shaped or abnormally shaped or bunched up, and maybe even with some type of structural changes on the outside. So my point being that you may feel that EMFs aren't a problem for you. You may feel like, well, I've never been exposed to anything like a solar inverter or a cell phone mast, right, being erected above my apartment or nearby. I'm fine. And I'm glad if you don't notice these things in terms of who wants to feel these things. But you're still affected. You're still affected. So whether you realize it or not, you're going to be under oxidative stress. Your body, your blood cells will be affected by, for example, smart meter radiation. Just because you don't notice it doesn't mean it's not affecting you. That's the point. Okay, so I'm going to move on to talk about a few of my favorite antioxidant formulas. So that's continuing the theme that we started with on antioxidants to boost your free radical defense, which we're under assault from free radicals. In this case, we're talking about from electromagnetic fields. I want to talk a little bit about hydrogen products. I've done extensive videos on hydrogen products, but what I like to do, two of my favorites here are the Mega Hydrate from Patrick Flanagan and the Active H2 Ultra from, I believe it's Purative. And so I take these daily. What I'll do is I'll take 8 to 12 ounces or more of water, and I'll put in a scoop of Mega Hydrate. It also comes in capsules. This just happens to be the capsule form. You can break open a capsule into your water, and it slightly effervesces. Maybe leave it in there for 30 seconds or a minute, And then drop in an active H2 tablet, small tablet, and this will fizz and create molecular hydrogen. So what I didn't say is this is Hydrate, and it's a massive electron donor. You can, if you measure the ORP of water with this in it, it can drive it down by negative 700 ORP. Which is amazing, and it can sit for 3 weeks and not lose much potency. So this is going to generate huge amounts of electrons, and this is molecular hydrogen, which has its own unique antioxidant benefits. And remember that hydrogen is a very, very small molecule, so it can go through all the compartments in your body into cells and act as a very powerful free radical scavenger. And so then I'll just drink it down. Just remember, these can be taken separately. They don't need to be taken together. I find it very convenient to do. And finally, a couple of little products that I like. This one, I don't really know if it's an antioxidant per se. It's called Restore. What I found from Restore is it's actually a gut health formula. And I've talked about this in other videos just devoted to this product alone. This one closes tight junctions. So you have a tight junction barrier in your gut, and you have a blood-brain barrier in your brain. And the one in your gut actually starts around your nasal septum and goes all the way down to the end of your intestines. And I have found this helps with EMF exposures. So let's say I'm feeling I got a little headache or something because I got too close to someone with a cell phone for too long. It's a liquid. I can just take a teaspoon of this and take it, and I will often notice a clearing in very short order. And there is scientific basis for how this might work. I didn't mention this before, but one effect of electromagnetic fields is opening tight junctions. So, for example, they've done studies on the blood-brain barrier, and electromagnetic fields weaken that barrier. The blood-brain barrier is there for a reason. It's to keep things, in the bloodstream and not in your brain. Evolution has given us this to protect us. Similarly, the tight junctions in the gut are there because, the body knows it needs to protect itself, right? If your tight junctions are open, then any proteins from foods that you eat can get in there and create allergies and can create anaphylactic reactions potentially. Can expose you to proteins that are not digested, not processed. So without going into too much detail, suffice it to say that this works rapidly. It's helped me with my allergies, but it also helps me with EMF exposures. So Restore has really helped me with EMFs and with allergies. And suffice it to say, this is just a really great product for boosting your microbiome. It's a fertilizer, if you will, for microbiome diversity. And so, while I have been taking this not necessarily as an antioxidant or for EMF exposures directly, at least initially, it's a phenomenal product overall for boosting gut health. And I would add gut-brain health because the gut and the brain are so intimately connected. And so, if you're on a program of antioxidants to help with EMF exposures or to be healthier, it can't hurt to try this formula because it'll make you healthier all around. But like I said, it really does work well for EMF exposures by sealing up tight junctions and helping with blood-brain barrier issues that may be caused by exposure. And then finally, I just wanted to let you know, there's actually a bunch of other products I could talk about because I have other antioxidant formulas, and there's other products that we have that would help with EMFs. But this is just sort of my initial foray, and I wanted to introduce some of the products that I think work best for just getting started with this. And finally, this product is called C60. It's also known as carbon 60, and this is the particular C60 product we carry. There are others. This is made by the company carbon60oliveoil.com. And before I get into this, I just wanted to say this is an experimental product. So this may be something you want to try last, or it may be something you want to try first. We sell it as for research, and so it's not been like looked at as a supplement for sale to, and as by regulators. So we sell it for research purposes, and I use it for my own research purposes. And what this is these are very, very small. I mean, I would say nano-sized, but not in a bad nano sense. These are very, very, very small carbon units that look like little 60-sided soccer balls. They're called Fullerenes after Buckminster Fuller, the scientist who discovered the buckyball. Well, they call it the buckyball, but it's really a Fullerene. Buckminster Fuller was into these geometric shapes. So it's 60-sided, and each of these vertices can hold 20 electrons. And it can donate those electrons repeatedly, which means this is a very powerful antioxidant because it has the power to fit in very, very, very small spaces. And then it can repeatedly donate electrons. So, like, wow. The French rat study done on this particular nutrient or substance, the rats lived 1.9 times longer than controls, which means you take a rat that lives 2 years or 2.5, and the rat now lives 5. Very intriguing, and the rats were healthy. So I'm not telling you to run out and get this today, but it's certainly worth a try, as it has a very, very powerful antioxidant capacity. And I'm going to be doing a video on this product and this substance devoted solely to this C60, carbon 60, shortly, probably in the next couple of weeks. And I'll go into far more detail. But I just kind of wanted to plant the seed of a product that could be very, very useful for free radical scavenging. Moreover, this particular product, which is the Mega Hydrate, and I would say as well as taking the product as I recommended it in conjunction with the Active H2 Ultra, the Mega Hydrate is really the negative hydrogen anion, which is H-. Very, it's tiny. But the beautiful thing about this product is, at least I feel, it's by giving your body so many negative electrons, you could replenish the vertices that hold 20 electrons on the C60 product, which means you're recharging that Fullerene so that it can just donate more and more and more electrons. So we're really getting here at almost a very focused approach to antioxidant defense. But I think I will leave you there with that, because I have more videos coming that are going to delve a little more deeply into the antioxidant defense topic. And I'm really happy to be able to share with you some of the things I've learned in recent years about EMFs, electromagnetic fields, and some of the meters that I have, and how I've adapted myself to deal with the oxidative assault, if you will, from electromagnetic fields. And it continues. I am continuing to refine and learn more and figure out better ways of providing antioxidant defense. And the least I can do is share it with you. So once again, this is Fred Liers of Health Products Distributors and another Creating Health Naturally video. If you like this video, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can click like, give it a like, and you can also subscribe to our monthly newsletter. You can do all of this on integratedhealth.com, www.integratedhealth.com, the website of Health Products Distributors. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.